Started training camp today, and Anthony Richardson had himself a day. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hello, everyone. I am Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com, and I'm joined by the boots on the ground from horseshoehuddle.com as well, Jake Arthur, my favorite other half here on the show. We're here talking.
Tell Hannah you said that.
I said on the show.
Oh,
I
okay.
caught that. Yeah, you almost got me there. But we are here talking Colts training camp. Jake, obviously our boots on the ground. We have that inside advantage. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get the inside scoop, make sure you're following that link in our show notes. But besides that, guys, we are talking Colts training camp day one. Anthony Richardson and our Indianapolis Colts were back out there on the football field. It's finally back, everyone. Colts football is back. You can see if you're watching on YouTube here, Jake's background is the trees. There's going to be some chickens back there and everything too. Like Colts training camp, baby. We are officially here. So today we're going to go back to our normal way that we segment these shows in the offseason, where I'm going to be leading off the show. We're going to be talking all about Anthony Richardson in segment 1. We're going to go to the offense in segment 2, and then close it out with the Colts defense. If you guys are joining us live on YouTube, make sure you leave your comments and questions, and we'll try to get to them here on the show as well. But Jake, we got to start off with Anthony Richardson because, look, we are Locked On Colts, obviously, but we're basically Locked On Anthony Richardson. That's essentially what our secondary job is here. So Anthony Richardson back on the football field, no limitations, only an hour-long practice. But what did you see from the young quarterback in his time out there at practice today?
Yep, it was kind of business as usual as we were used to seeing him, towards the end of last training camp after he'd been declared the starter. Took all the first-team reps, of course. Now, the focus of the offense today was primarily on, everything was pretty much in the red zone, worked on the run game and RPOs. So not a ton of passes for Richardson. Again, mostly running, which he's heavily involved in, of course. But he was able to be efficient. He was 4 of 5 passing, which was really good. All the different receivers. He's a guy who is kind of course, in the red zone, you've shortened in your field, but he's not just looking for dump offs, so that's good. Had 3 touchdowns down in the red zone. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., and Kylen Granson. So he's finding different areas to throw the ball to within the red zone. And, the most challenging area of the field to throw in is the red zone. So to see him succeed there, that was really good to see. So the guy still looks explosive. He's cutting hard. He had a good day passing the ball. So it's only day one. We're going to see, a bigger variety of passing options for him. We're going to see the defense get pads on, which always amps them up. Like there's going to be a couple days here early where the defense just kind of punks the offense. It is always how it's going to go. But at least the offense and Richardson set a good tone on day one.
Yeah, and, obviously you're not a doctor or anything, Jake, or you wouldn't be on this show with me every single day. But when it came to Anthony, right. When it came to Anthony Richardson's arm and just any kind of limitations, did you see any, grabbing at the arm, pain, or the ball not having the same velocity, or did he look like Anthony Richardson that we saw last training camp and early last season?
No, he looks totally normal. And we spoke with him after practice. And, we asked, obviously, at the end of minicamp, you weren't able to throw on that last day, which I'm glad we have the context now of the fact that he threw a ton the day before. He threw 100 balls plus the day before, which is the main reason why he didn't throw that last day, which makes the whole thing even more overblown than it was before. But no, he's been totally cleared, no limitations on him whatsoever. He said he was asked about, how does the arm feel? Because he said back then, he had his good days and bad. He has his achy days and everything. And it seems like a lot of that's in the past. And he's much closer to normal now than he had been at any point.
Good, good. That's definitely good to hear because, again, there was a lot of concern with that final day of missed minicamp, which, some of it was overblown. Some of it was fair to be concerned, but it's good to hear that that was more, kind of part of what they were doing. The 100 passes the day before kind of works out. Did anything else stand out really about Richardson or how he ran the offense? Like you said, there's a lot of running, so we understand that. Was there still a lot of quarterback runs and quarterback run designs in there? I know there are some people in the Colts fandom that want all those taken out of the playbook and never expose him to hits ever again.
Well, I will tell those guys it's not going to happen. Literally, Shane Steichen after practice today used the analogy like, would you tell Steph Curry to stop shooting three-pointers in reference to Anthony, and his ability to run the ball. Anthony said, I'm not going to change that. Shane said he's not going to change that because that's what makes him who he is. That's why he's so dangerous. I mean, he can move like other guys can't with the ball in their hands while they're still intending to pass. But you just Anthony Richardsons don't grow on trees essentially. So that's not going to happen. He did get plenty of work as a runner today. Had one, maybe two would-be touchdowns. But something else that stuck out to me, and it's something I'd like to ask him about when it's not day one of camp and, everyone wants to ask him everything. But throughout his career now, we're going on a little over a year. During 7-on-7s, that's usually when quarterbacks like excel, and that's when they're at their best. Like Justin Fields, for example, when he was here during joint practices last year, that's the only time he excelled when there wasn't pressure. I'm thinking during 7-on-7s, that's when Anthony is like trying things out, and it's not about winning the rep or anything. It's literally he has a certain thing he's focusing on or trying to do, because if he's not getting the ball out quickly, like he lets the play go and go and go and go, and he'll only take off with it if the coverage is locked down and the play is pretty much dead. But he lets things develop in 7-on-7s, I will say. I don't really know how much else to say it, but he's interesting to watch. He did have a touchdown in 7-on-7s today, though. Found Pittman over the middle of the field, right in the front of the end zone, threaded it right in between Juju Brents and Rodney Thomas, so that was really good to see. But no, I'm going to have to ask him about that soon because it's very curious, because during 7-on-7s, people are going to say, why can't he do this during 7-on-7s? There's no pressure coming or anything. It's like, well, the receivers have to get open and this and that. But no, I'm sure he has objections during each 7-on-7 chunk that I'm really interested to find out kind of what that's all about.
Awesome. And then one more thing about Richardson before we move over to the offense is, were there any players in particular it seemed like he was really gelling with, guys that, kind of carried over from last offseason? I know you mentioned some touchdowns to Granson and Pierce and Pittman, but was there any in particular player that it really felt like he was gelling with in those sessions?
Not particularly today. He spread the ball around quite a bit. Like there was probably only a couple guys who got multiple targets between 7s and 11s. Pittman and Downs, I think probably Granson too. They all got multiple targets. AD had maybe one or two he had one in 11s that was incomplete. That was the one incompletion. The ball was thrown a little low and the defender was able to get his hand on there. And I think they had another in 7-on-7. So I don't think anyone had any more than like 2, maybe 3 targets. But I will say back during minicamp and OTAs, when Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman were being sat out for precautionary reasons, Josh Downs was fed a ton of balls. So any instance where it's just Michael Pittman, because Downs is the second part of the passing offense. Anytime there's going to be someone that goes out of the passing game, Downs is just going to feast.
Yeah. No, Josh Downs, I'm expecting a huge season from him this year. Mm-hmm. And I think I said this on Twitter the other day. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw 1,000 yards from him this year, depending on obviously health and who's out there and all that stuff. But
I don't think that's too much of a stretch. I mean,
no,
he had one of the better seasons a Colts rookie receiver has ever had, and he dealt with a lingering knee issue throughout the whole second half. And his quarterback was Gardner Minshew. I mean, they did some really nice things together, but I mean, the playbook isn't fully open at that point,
Yeah. Coming up, guys, we're going to transition to the rest of the offense. So that was a great segue, Jake. You want to talk about Josh Downs. We'll talk about Downs and everyone else on this offense here in just a second. But first, I know a lot of y'all in Indy like to travel out to Chicago or Cincy or wherever to catch an MLB game. You can see good baseball in downtown Indy too with the Indy Indians as well. No matter where you are going to see pro baseball, get yourself settled first with Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and lowest price guaranteed. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Last-minute deals, you guys can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, anything near you. You get the seat views, get that whole panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and you get the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And Locked On Colts everydayers, are you tired of watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down all that shouting, make the switch to the free 24/7 sports streaming channel that is Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today brings you the news, a can't-miss analysis and opinions, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm joined again today by Jake Arthur, our local boots on the ground, our favorite half of this show, and this is where he really goes to work. The Inside Colts training camp, give you all the insider look into what's happening on the field, talk to the coaches afterwards, the players afterwards. It's a great time of year for Colts fans. We talked about Anthony Richardson in segment 1, so if you're just joining us, you can rewind it there or obviously watch after the show. But now we are talking all about the Colts offense. So we're talking about the situations that they were in, the rotations, what it was looking like out there. Jake, before we get into all of that though, who was out today and who kind of replaced those players in the lineup if they were out today?
Yeah, so really the only guy who was out today who we didn't know would be was Braden Smith. He, of course, had a knee procedure earlier in the offseason, which has kept him out the entire time. So we haven't seen him practice yet since that. He wasn't out there yet today. Now, he wasn't on like the PUP list or non-football injury list, so he'll be back out there sooner rather than later. Chris Ballard didn't make it seem like they were worried about it at all yesterday. Again, if they were, he would have opened up on a list. We've seen these long-term injuries before. So with Smith out, Blake Freeland, who was his primary backup all last year, got all the first-team reps at right tackle as well. But that's pretty much it. I mean, you're looking at like Raekwon Davis was out on the defensive side. But yeah, I mean, in terms of consequential players, you're really just looking at Braden Smith. The good news, though, was guys who were back, who we've gotten, unfortunately, used to not seeing out there. Obviously, Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce missed. Yeah, we're so back, baby. The heavy machinery, like, this is camp.
It's camp.
Pitt and Pierce, they obviously both missed all of mini camp with their precautionary injuries. They're obviously both back. Ashton Dulin, which big part of this show is Ashton Dulin love. He was back out there. Obviously, he suffered his ACL injury last summer. Jelani Woods, who, of course, returned this offseason, but the fans haven't seen him. So he's back as well. Wasn't his strongest day today, but he had a good offseason nonetheless. So it almost feels like a new team with the amount of guys they have back who we got used to not seeing. Like, they ran it back with like the whole entire same team, but there are kind of fresh faces rejoining the team because they've been hurt. So there is some newness to it despite these guys already being on the roster.
Yeah, and, with this Colts team, especially on offense, we don't have many battleground spots, especially with the starters. Anthony Richardson locked in place. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs locked in place. Pretty much the whole offensive line when Braden Smith comes back, that's all locked in. The two kind of battleground spots we're looking at, though, with offense is obviously wide receiver 2 or the outside wide receiver 2 with Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, and then whatever the heck is happening at tight end. So let's start with tight end. Jake, what did that rotation look like there? Was it all Kylen Granson and Mo Alley-Cox, or did somebody else kind of already pass Mo Alley-Cox and get a lot of those starter reps out there?
No, luckily, I think, our concern there that we had expressed earlier in the offseason, not coming true so far. So what seemed to be the vibe early, now they all got involved. All 5 of those guys were involved with the first team at some point. But what it seemed to be was Drew Ogletree getting that Mo Alley-Cox role, the inline tight end, the guy you can do a little bit of everything with. Kylen Granson maintained that, sometimes he's going to be in the backfield, sometimes he's going to line up off of the line. That's kind of his same deal. Nothing has really changed there. That's actually how he caught that little dump-off touchdown. Mo Alley-Cox came in when it was like jumbo package time and they were running in the red zone. And then, Jelani Woods and Will Mallory, they're both kind of, passing, pass catching tight ends. So, in terms of roles, nothing really changed, but the pecking order, I guess you could say, maybe did, with Drew Ogletree, I guess, being the biggest mover. Obviously, he missed the last part of last year with his suspension. So I don't want to say he's tight end 1, but he seems like one of the top 2 or 3 most involved. Like we talked about recently, like he could wind up seeing the most snaps.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, Drew Ogletree was the best blocker on the team last year, and I would honestly say in terms of his versatility as a blocker, he's like irreplaceable when it comes to the run game, when it comes to the pass game. Even he can be a faster tight end getting outside and blocking. He can be an inline guy and block really well. So it makes sense to see Drew Ogletree surpassing Mo Alley-Cox, and Mo Alley-Cox being more of like that jumbo tight end there. Let's move to the other wide receiver battle, though. AD Mitchell, Alec Pierce. Now, we have kind of tempered expectations a little bit with a lot of our fans this offseason, saying, look, it's going to be tough to pass Pierce because Pierce does all the little things, and he's been in this offense for a couple years. How did that look today? Like, was Pierce the de facto starter and like uncontested, or did Mitchell get some run with the first teams and supplant Pierce at times out there?
Yeah, so it was Pierce out there initially with the first team, Pittman, Pierce, and Downs, as would be expected. But Mitchell did come in and replace him at times. They both did get work with Richardson in the first team. Something I'm more interested in seeing with Mitchell as an outcome of how people have spoken about him recently. So he spoke today after practice as well and has made it seem like he's kind of another one of those football nerds. He's soaking up everything. He's going to his veterans for help. Like, apparently Pittman has taken him under his wing. Like, Mitchell took it upon himself this offseason to seek out Pittman and go to where he was to train with him. So that's something really, really good to hear. You love to hear that from these young guys. Mitchell talked about wanting to become a better blocker, which is something we have said is why Pierce won't just be so easily replaced. So if Mitchell wants to get better there, then that's honestly his biggest ticket to getting that playing time. So right now, Mitchell is saying and doing all the right things, and his peers are echoing that about him, that he has said and done all the right things. So that's really good to see. Again, Pierce isn't just going to like disappear into the night. Like, I think we both expect having Richardson back there will help him quite a bit, but I will be interested to see, fast forward this thing 2 weeks, and is it more of a 50-50 split? What does it look like? Because this does feel different with Mitchell. It doesn't feel like the summer love that we get every year with a receiver where a bottom of the depth chart guy is blowing up. Like, no, this guy is a big part of the future if he pans out.
Yeah. You guys know I'm a huge Alec Pierce fan, and in the draft cycle, AD Mitchell drove me crazy. But I will always say this: if Mitchell can hit on his potential or even scratch the surface of his potential, you obviously put him in over Alec Pierce. Like, it's a very, very easy thing because Mitchell's potential is that great. Before we move out of offense, though, Jake, were there any other news and notes, just some quick hitters you wanted to throw to our listeners here?
Well, everyone always loves lineup questions. I get those quite a bit during training camp. So we'll just kind of cycle through the offensive line rotation real quick, first, second, third team. So there were really no surprises with the first team, but with Braden Smith being out, Blake Freeland was the right tackle. The second unit line was Jake Witt at left tackle, who obviously missed, he had a hip injury this time last year that set him out. Jake Witt was the left tackle with the second and third team. Second unit left guard was Wesley French. Danny Pinter, know and love him. Center for the second team, Josh Sills, second team right guard. Matt Gonzalez, second team right tackle. that is Blake Freeland's major competition when it comes to the swing tackle role. Third team offensive line, again, I mentioned Witt at left tackle, Lewis Kidd at left guard, Bordolini at center with the third team. We'll see how that goes. He's got Wesley French and Danny Pinter ahead of them, Dalton Tucker at right guard, and Arlington Hambright at right tackle. Again, those are hypothetical, would be first, second, third units. I can't use definitive language with all that, but we'll see how those things kind of solidify throughout camp.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we're going to move over to defense now. I know it's not as fun and as sexy as offense, but look, guys, this defense is going to be make or break for the Colts this next season, and we got some fun rookies to talk about on that defensive side as well. But first, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Already Locked On Colts Everydayers, we're here inside training camp with the great Jake Arthur. We're here talking all about the defense now. We just talked offense. We talked Anthony Richardson. Now we're going to switch over to defense. And obviously, before we get into all the players and the lineups and all the stuff that you love to talk about, Jake, there is one guy on defense that obviously is going to get all the love, all the attention that we really need to look at, and that is first-round pick Laiatu Latu. I know the pads weren't on today, Jake, but how did he look out there? And just, just from the eye view, the bird's eye view, what you were looking at, was it cool to see that young player out there?
Yeah, for sure. He got some occasional reps with the first unit, of course, like he did during the offseason program, primarily working with the second team. It's kind of him and Dio / Taekwon are the second team defensive ends, but all those guys got some looks with the first team as well. I didn't notice him stick out with any pressures or anything, but I wasn't necessarily looking for that. As the pads get on in the coming days, I'm sure we'll start to notice more. But no, I mean, he's out there. You would hope a guy who's drafted that early would be getting the reps that he's getting. I think some people are going to be clamoring him for him to start and be like the primary defensive end right away. But Samson Ebukam and Kwity Paye are pretty entrenched there. I mean, it's going to take a lot for Latu to kind of supplant either of them. And I don't know that he fully will at some point in this summer. But see, we got dogs, we got planes, we got chickens, we got flies, we got it all.
Yeah, we got live stream. This is live stream coverage, guys. It's the fun part of show business here. But yeah, no, when it comes to the defense, unlike with the offense where there are a couple battleground spots for starting, like tight end is wide open on offense, obviously. But when it comes to defense, I don't really think there's anything wide open outside of cornerback 2. And even cornerback 2 kind of feels a little bit entrenched because it looks like here, Jalen Jones, yet again, getting those starting spots or a lot of that stuff. Was it really a rotation at outside corner 2, or was it mostly Jalen Jones out there today?
I do think Flowers got the occasional look with the first team, but it was primarily Jones. And I don't want to say he's no doubt the starter going in. It is technically a battle, but I think it's going to take Flowers doing some stuff to become that third corner. Otherwise, my expectation is that it's going to be Brent, Jones, and Moore as the 3 corners going into the season.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I heard Jalen Jones had some good moments out there today. Mm-hmm. Was there anything notable with that cornerback room besides Jalen Jones, or was it mostly just a day for the offense out there?
No, so I thought that third cornerback spot had a good first day in its battle. I mean, Dallas Flowers had a nice diving pass breakup in front of one of the pylons at the end zone. And then, A.D. Mitchell kind of spent his offseason program mossing the Colts defenders. We got to see it on social media all the time. Jones didn't let that happen today. I think the offense was at about the defense's 15-yard line or so. and Richardson targeted Mitchell along the right side for a fade route into the end zone. And Jones just used that size and length to his advantage and just basically boxed Mitchell out along the boundary. The ball went into the end zone, but Mitchell never really had a shot to get it. And I think that's one reason why, like, no one's super enamored with Jalen Jones, is because, like, he's just out there. He's not making, like, a ton of huge plays, getting picks and stuff. But that's what he is. I think more than anything, he is a deterrent and annoyance to receivers that they have a hard time getting around him. And he put that on display today.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's kind of like the Rock Ya-Sin effect, where it's like, not this overly fast, overly athletic player who's going to get a bunch of interceptions. I mean, I guess Rock had that one against the Packers a couple years ago, but you don't really get many of the playmaking stuff. It's just a guy that's in position a lot, and it's not sexy, but it's great. It's great to have a corner that's just in position, not getting toasted. Yeah, exactly. Some other news and notes, obviously, to talk about though here. Obviously, the Colts made this big transition from they turned a linebacker back to safety. That means safety is officially locked up and good. We don't have to complain anymore. Ronnie Harrison moving back to safety, at least in some kind of rotational capacity in practice today. Do you think now the Colts are done at safety, Jake? I mean, now that the solution is there, right? Ronnie Harrison back at safety.
Now, Ballard did say that they could make a move there. They didn't say it wouldn't be internal. But no, I think, we saw Harrison get that action in the last couple games last season when Blackman went out. And, after they drafted Jalen, it's going to be real loud over here. Don't worry about it. After they drafted Jalen Carlisle, they essentially had two of the same guy at linebacker. And I guess it was resourceful of them to just maybe move Harrison back to safety where they had last played him. And they need depth there, sure, of course, with Daniel Scott getting hurt. Like, they could use an extra capable body there. I don't know if that means they're done there. I don't think Harrison super moves the needle for them. But I mean, he's another player who has started before in the NFL, and the free safety position, it's not wide open. Again, I think it's Nick Cross's job to lose. But I mean, Harrison did get some rotational snaps in there. Rodney Thomas did get some rotational snaps in there. So they're doing their due diligence and finding out, who's the best to take over that spot and be alongside Julian Blackman. But yeah, my guess is that Harrison is probably officially back to being a safety now.
Yeah. Okay. So we got Ronnie Harrison and Rodney Thomas as the back.
Just like it was drawn up
with that duo as the backups. But any other news and notes, Jake, when it came to the defense today? Again, I know no pads were on. You're not going to see a ton going on in the trenches. Was there anything that really stood out to you about the defense, aside from what we already talked about with cornerback 2 and with the Ronnie Harrison move there?
Not really yet. I mean, again, this was a really short practice, just like an hour or so. So there wasn't a ton of time. And again, a lot of it was focused on the run game. And of course, Jonathan Taylor always looks good doing that. I will shout out Grant Stewart, who was running with the third team today, but made a nice play in coverage. Slinging Sammy Ellinger went to Evan Hull on kind of a short Texas route, but Grant Stewart was not about to let that happen. He got his arm in there late and separated Hull from the ball and got the pass breakup.
Yeah, and one thing, this is actually a great comment by Kenny here, because it is something I wanted to ask. When it came to backup Mike linebacker, I was really shocked when Ballard mentioned that as like a battleground spot the other day, because I just kind of assumed Saguna Luby was going to carry over from last year and be that guy again. You actually have here in your notes that Luby got some first team snaps at one of the linebacker spots. Do you think they're kind of moving him off of Mike, or what do you think's going on with that Mike spot?
So Luby, from what I could tell, when he was with the first unit in the base defense, he was getting some Sam auto linebacker work. That doesn't mean like when the season starts that he might not still be the backup Mike linebacker. But, Liam Anderson gets some work there as well. Jalen Carlisle, I saw in the middle of the field at one point. I couldn't tell whether he was at Mike or Will. But they're Liam Anderson. I think Alubi is still in there, but Anderson, Alubi, and maybe even Carlisle are probably vying for that spot.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, guys, that's all we have for today's training camp coverage. This was the first day of live practice. The next practice, what is Saturday, Jake, right? This Saturday?
Yes, Saturday. They Shane Steichen explained that they're kind of ramping things up. They don't want to like maximize the time they can be out there. They don't, and they focused on the red zone today, so guys didn't have to run all over the entire field. So short, light practice today, day off tomorrow, and they'll really get at it on Saturday.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, don't worry, guys. We'll be back covering all these training camp practices for you guys. We'll be getting these live streams out to you right after practice to talk about everything that went down. And Jake will obviously be our expert on the ground there. So, Jake, great job today. Continue the great work here. And all you guys listening will be able to benefit from that right there. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to remind you that Locked On has launched that first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can find that on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering those top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. Find that Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following us at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks too, all on Twitter. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly for the inside scoop, follow the link in our show notes. Really cool thing we are giving to you guys there. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love you guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.